Hi, everybody. Glad to see you again. Hope you had a great holiday. We're now gearing into, we're swinging into spring, as they say, and we're heavy into sports. We're heavy into the weather turning around and finally being pretty beautiful, if you want the truth of it is. And we're doing something tonight we haven't done before. We're doing a tribute show. And I have no idea if the camera can pick this up, but this is a cup. And the cup is from Rush Limbaugh. And if you subscribe to what they used to call a Limbaugh letter, you could get something like this and other things that he did as well. Rush Limbaugh lived to 70, and he passed away pretty much the week that Joe Biden was inaugurated. I think it was January 12th or something like that, 21. And I was an avid listener, as many people were, on both sides of the aisle, because the man was an entertainer. But he was always very topical, and he would let you know what was really going on. And I don't believe that we really appreciated the value that he brought to the American listening public until he finally was not able to do the show anymore, and then ultimately passed. And what we're going to do tonight in 25 minutes is the best job we can, and my partner in crime here, Jay Givan, he's joining us this evening. But we're not going to be discussing anything with Trump or Biden. That'll be for other shows down the road. Plenty of time for that. But we thought tonight would be a very good opportunity, as I say, to offer tribute to the great Rush Limbaugh. So we also have some little snippets, if technology works for us, that we'll be able to share with you. So good seeing you again.
I feel like I'm both snurdly to your Rush.
Both snurdly. In the golden, not exactly the golden EIB mic.
And for you people in Rio Linda, a little snippet, it's just a short little segment of something larger. Everybody listened to Rush. And in his height, 90s, first decade of this century, no matter where I went making sales calls at 12:06, 11:06, 10:06, 9:06 in the left coast.
Absolutely.
I mean, that's when people commuted. That's when people stopped for lunch. I don't care if I was in New London, East Providence at Miller's Roast Beef, some pizza place down in New Haven. You'd pull in and you'd see everybody else, in their shirt and tie, just eating and listening to Rush.
And nobody was talking.
Nobody was talking. I'd have sales managers come in, and we'd have like a 1:30, 2 o'clock that meeting.
Yeah.
And no, Rush is on a roll. Now, never mind the account. We need to listen to Rush for a bit. They were the Rush rooms.
Yeah.
I think Rush was a vaudevillian. He took the issues very seriously, but he wrapped it up in entertainment. He would make the complex understandable for everybody across the fruited plain and flyover country. So I was looking for video clips and maybe some quotes of his. Mm-hmm. Hopefully this works. We may as well start off with the theme song and some classic Rush. So, and I don't mean the band Rush, Lee Lyson and Peart.
Or Tommy Rush.
Mahogany Rush.
There you go.
So, let's hit it.
Liberal prescriptions for welfare. They have only expanded the number of people who are on welfare rolls. Liberalism creates dependence. Liberalism operates in the guise of wanting to help people, but it actually condemns them to dependency. It is the opposite of compassion. And they own this compassion. They think they've got a monopoly on it, and there's nothing compassionate about liberalism. It hurts people. It harms them.
Why do people have the view then, you correct me if you think this is wrong, that Republicans will balance the budget first, then help people? The Democrats are compassionate about people, and they may waste a lot of money in the process of helping them, but they care about people first.
Well, I don't believe they care about people first. That's the big joke. Oh, we spent since whenever the Great Society started, LBJ 64, 1964 to the present, we've spent $5 trillion. And the percentage of people in this country on welfare are still there. Welfare reform, by the way, which Clinton finally signed after vetoing.
He signed with support of the Republicans.
That's the point. Welfare reform is putting people back to work. It's making them less dependent. And all the horror stories the liberals told us about what would happen are not happening. They're not increased crime in the streets. There is not a bunch of people walking homeless in the streets. They're out working. They had to.
Well, if we had a Democrat sitting here right now, they'd be creaming you, and they'd be throwing statistic after statistic out, and saying, gosh, you were dead wrong.
No, they couldn't. Well, throw me the statistics. They're not there. They don't exist. I mean, the statistics are just the opposite. The fact of the matter is that compassion, this whole business of compassion, defined as the government helping people. That's not compassion. You know what compassion is? Compassion is counting the number of people who no longer need government help. The number of people who have been properly educated to provide for themselves, to become self-reliant, to reach their full potential as individuals, to enjoy the freedom, God-given freedom that this country offers them. That is denied to them under liberalism because they end up being dependent on government. And liberalism, look at how it operates. It has to scare people. We're out of here.
Be good. Wow.
So there's a quote of his, "A nation cannot tax itself into prosperity." And that seems very obvious. We know the Democrats were guilty of doing this, but too many Republicans are. And Rush had always explained this fastest, simplest, easiest way to give people more money is through a tax cut.
Yep.
It's as simple as that, because if you take money out of the people who create the wealth in this country, and then it filters through government, through this agency and that agency and this back pocket and some other back pocket, less money is going back to the people you're helping. Just cut taxes across the board. You know, it's not the government's money, it's your money. I think to bring this back down to Worcester, you need to pay public employees well enough to attract talented people, teachers, cops, right down the line. But when you're getting to the point that public employees who are making 30, 50, 60%, twice as much as the people paying the taxes to fund their salaries, something's going to happen. And this city has a 20+% poverty rate. How do you do it? And I mean, this is why this city has a I would imagine a $1.3 or $1.4 billion unfunded liability at this point.
Yeah.
And so you can't raise property taxes, you can't put in new CPA charges, and you can't have these stupid rental programs. And that's just so that city council's a bunch of busybodies. Leave people alone, cut their taxes, they'll have the money to improve their property. What else can you say about it? You know, it's not the government's money.
It never is, and remember this, the government does not create anything, doesn't manufacture anything. All it does is take from your pocket, and then they can redistribute it the way that they see fit, is what it boils down to. And it goes back to one of the first political phrases that any of us ever learned, very simple. It was taxation without representation is illegal. And nowadays, that concept has gone bye-bye, which is really sad. But back to Rush, the thing that he would do, one of the groups that he was always against was what he used to call tax and spend liberals. Okay, but the concept in those days is that those liberals were basically all Democrats. The truth of it is not the case. You've got them on both sides of the aisle. That, what are we down? 36 trillion now? I think that's our national debt.
But that doesn't include the unfunded liabilities at the local level, state level,
That's just
and the federal level. That's just budgetary debt. I think Mark Levin, which, boy, I wish he were the new fill-in host, but he can get a little heavy at times. Boy, a couple of years ago, I thought he said that the total unfunded liability in this country, local, state, and federal, is up around $215, $200 trillion.
Yeah.
I mean, that makes the $36 trillion debt look like a pocket change. So Rush, in this next clip, and I can't believe I got it up. It doesn't look too good here. This is from the 2009 CPAC. He comes to the point that conservatives and the Republican Party in general, we cannot accept a stupid premise. Locally, Mill Street. You don't change the process. They look at things politically when our problems are caused philosophically.
Good point.
You don't tweak Mill Street. You get it back to normal. 2 lanes each way, good sidewalks, and leave people alone. You don't put parking in the middle of the road and a bike lane and some other lane.
I've never seen anything like that.
So you're going to allow delusional, narcissistic Looney Tunes, like, I won't mention it, people probably know who she is, to let her delusions become reality. And because of her policies, there's now been at least one fatality in Worcester.
Well, it's collateral damage.
Right, and again, it's not, as Rush would say, it's not, you don't tinker around debating the process. It's a philosophical debate. And whether people like it or not, elections come down to Republican versus Democrat. That's all the choices. So let's go with number 2.
Are temporary stewards of this nation. It is not their task to remake the founding of this country. It is not their task to tear it apart and rebuild it in their image. We have it is not their task. It is not their right to remake this nation to accommodate their psychology. I sometimes wonder if liberalism is not just a psychosis or a psychology, not an ideology.
It's a mental disease.
It's so much about feelings, and the predominant feeling liberalism is about is feeling good about themselves, and they do that by telling themselves they have all this compassion. You know how to really, if you really want to unhinge a liberal, it's hard to do because they're so unhinged now anyway, even after they, but all you have to do is say, you know what, the things you people do, the things you people believe in are cruel. That's the last way they look at themselves. They are the best people on earth. They're the good people. You tell them that their ideas and that their policies are cruel, and the eggs start scrambling and just... It's fun. I have learned how to tweak liberals everywhere. I do it instinctively now. Tweak them in the media, tweak them in the... There's no reason to be afraid of these people. For why in the world would you be afraid of the deranged? There really is no reason to be afraid of them. And there's no reason to assume they're the minority, and there's no reason to let them set all the premises and the agendas to which we respond to. I'm getting a little bit ahead of myself here, but everybody asks me, and I'm sure it's been a focal point of your convention, well, what do we do as conservatives? What do we do? How do we overcome this? Well, the one thing, and there are many, but one thing that we can all do is stop assuming that the way to beat them is with better policy ideas right now. I don't want to name any names, it's not the point, but I talk to people about the Obama budget or the Obama porculus bill or the Obama
whatever the hell it is, the TARP 2, whatever it's going to be. And they start talking to me in the terms of process and policy. And I say, stop it. We're not, this, what do you mean? Who's setting the process? Who's setting the policy? They are. You want to tweak it? You want to, no, this is philosophy, folks. This guy, I forgot to, this guy in the focus group after Bobby Jindal said, oh God, I didn't want to hear him talking. Is this Republicans or Democrats? Republicans or Democrats? Ladies and gentlemen of the United States of America, that's exactly what your future is about. Who wins? Republicans or Democrats, conservatives versus liberals.
Wow. Wow. That interview was done in 2009.
15 years
15
ago.
years ago. And boy, does it ring true today. Does it ever ring true? The only thing that I would say is that I'm not so sure it's as cut and dried as Republican versus Democrat. What used to be the Democratic Party has gone so far to the left that the Democratic Party that existed when I was a kid growing up, that's long gone. And the Republican Party also has gone way over to the left as well. They think they're being centrist, but they're really not. And I think you can forget those terms. You really have to look at liberal and or progressive, as they call it. I put quotation marks around that. Progressive and conservatives. And there are certainly progressives, unfortunately, that march around with an R in front of their name. And there are a number of people who agree with the conservative philosophy who still consider themselves Democrats. But that's why I think to go forward, we really have to kind of get rid of those old labels and acknowledge who we are. What side of the aisle are you on? I don't care, Republican or Democrat. Are you progressive and everything that means today, or are you conservative? Bottom line. Anyway, back to Rush.
So, actually, the Worcester Republican City Committee has now updated their website, officialwrcc.org. They now have pages in Spanish.
Oh, wow.
And I think Portuguese is coming, and whatever else can fit. There's a few new Hispanic couples on the committee, and I was speaking with one of them a couple weeks ago, and she was telling me Hispanics, by and large, obviously not everybody, they're not a political identity group as the left would like them to be. They tend to live conservatively, but vote Democrat. Mm-hmm. So right now there's some sort of disconnect. So the WRCC, or any group across the country,
but their values are conservative.
Conservative values.
Yeah.
Democrat voters. It's slowly changing. The last poll I saw a few weeks ago, Joe Biden's at, I think, 56% with Hispanics. Trump at 42%. And that's bad for the Democrats. I think blacks are up around 25%, give or take a point or two. Mm-hmm. Traditionally, blacks are voting 90% Democrat, at least since FDR. I mean, they were all Republican up until then. We have, again, city councilors and I suppose other elected officials that when you go onto their social media pages and you say something they don't like, block, delete, no, goodbye. Mm-hmm. They can't do that, for one thing. So they are not allowing you to express your opinion or your thoughts to them because they simply don't care. They would rather have you just shut up and go away.
I buy First Amendment.
So here's another Rush clip. You can tell this is young. He's a little fat in the cheeks, but he's on Phil Donahue. Mm-hmm. And one lady called up, I think another guy after this, telling him that he shouldn't be allowed on the radio. So
let's see how he responds.
Yes.
Yes, I agree, young lady.
There's the new fascism. No, wait a minute. She starts out by saying, this is America, freedom of speech. She wants me off the air. She wants your help. You applaud it. You call me a fascist.
That's right. So let's write letters.
Madam, examine yourself. You should be embarrassed with this. I'm a harmless little fuzzball. Nobody makes you listen to me.
You're not harmless because you're a manipulator. You're devious and you're evil. And you don't help the world.
And would you please define fascism for me?
You define it.
No, you're the one throwing the accusation out. I don't think you even know what it is. I think you're reading a bunch of pap, reading a bunch of critics, what they say about me. You don't even know what you're saying. You can't defend it. You come out with this ridiculous stuff that gets applause from people who don't know what they're applauding either.
They applauded the remark about you being beaten as a child.
Ask him to define fascism. Just what is it?
Total control over other people. It's your dream.
That's called domination. It's not my dream. Fascism is a form of government. And if there is fascism in America today, it is the politically correct movement which is trying to deny people like me access to the First Amendment.
You need to get a therapist, man.
Now, Phil, no, I don't love that. And I tell you, no, wait a minute. I am not in this to make people mad, and I am not in this to try to, in a false way, drum up emotion that way. What just happened is a classic example of this stupid thing that happened at WABC. I make some points. Animals don't have rights. This guy says I need therapy. This is not a substantive response. It is a personal attack. It is typical of people who can't deal with me or my arguments in a substantive way.
Yes.
Fascinating, huh?
I mean, you can go on Google and find this stuff all over the place.
But think about what we just heard, and that was at least 20 years ago, maybe 30 years ago.
1992.
1992.
32 years ago.
32 years ago, to be exact. What he talked about, and in this little dialogue between himself, Donahue, and the caller, and so on and so forth, really what they wanted to do is shut him down because they didn't like where he was coming from, but they couldn't debate it intellectually. It's broad brush, personal attack, you're a nut, you need therapy, blah, 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 blah. That's not the point. Let's talk about what is fascism. And the other points that he brought up in that conversation.
It doesn't matter what the subject is.
But it's the same game
Mentality.
plan. And now that same mentality about shutting down basically the First Amendment. You know, we're all for freedom of speech as long as I like what you're saying. If I don't like what you're saying, guess what? And we're going to be the arbiters of what is, positive speech and what is negative speech. Can't do that. At least you couldn't do that in America before. Now you can. And it's getting scary. Everybody out there knows exactly what I'm talking about, that you're almost afraid to bring certain points out because people are going to just, go absolutely nuts with you. And you're not supposed to express counter views. Frankly, that's what it's all about. That's how we learn. It doesn't have to be a personal attack. You express your views on a subject, the other person expresses their views, and maybe you learn from each other, rather than trying to pound each other into the dirt, which seems to be the MO these days. And he was brilliant in isolating that. But again, looking back in retrospect, you don't realize that, again, 30 years ago, whatever that time frame was, the game plan has not changed. It's just become even more solidified and stratified.
When you're successful with something, you just keep doing it, because why wouldn't you?
Yeah, indeed.
I have noticed, and I've been fortunate enough to meet people from all over the country, from one reason or another, and I have noticed that conservatives in blue states can really debate better than conservatives in red states.
Really? Maybe because they have to.
Oh, we have to. Because there are no Mara Healeys in Mississippi or Alabama.
Yeah.
There are no Gavin Newsoms in Kansas.
Yeah, for sure.
There are no Kamala Harrises in Indiana, South Dakota.
There was a funny thing that happened, just to lighten up the subject for a minute. Obviously, when this is being filmed, today's April 17th. Last weekend and time frame, you've gone through this horrible issue with with Iran, back and forth with Israel and so forth. Over the weekend, they had a major meeting at the White House with the Austin, what's his name? The fellow who runs our military, with the deep voice, the guy who was in surgery and so forth. And everybody involved is sitting at this great big table. Who was not there was the Vice President of the United States. She was zooming in. The question is, what does she have to do that's more important than getting involved in a discussion with the President and his key operatives to determine what we do in the event that Israel really heats it up with Iran and you're getting to the point that you're ready for the big ones to start flying. She can't make the meeting.
So why was President Biden in Delaware that weekend when everybody knew this was coming, possibly? He should have been in the White House instead of on vacation again.
Without a doubt, without a doubt. This is where we've come, and the key thing is what you do is you tell them don't. And for what it's worth, folks, Obama is still the president of this country. It's as simple as that. He's pulling the strings behind every move that Biden is making, plain and simple. And as you remember, he had 3 or 4 major issues in his presidency where he drew that red line in the sand, and the other guys stepped right over it because they knew this was just smoke and mirrors. And that's exactly what we have now. And it's frightening. And we were kind of in bad shape when Limbaugh was taped in every one of those issues that you looked at. And we're in a hell of a lot worse shape than we are right now. And I don't know what's going to turn it around. I really don't.
All I know, the day he died, and January 12th is his birthday. He died February something, just a few weeks after Biden was inaugurated.
Yeah.
But it seemed like at that point, the Republican Party just went into complete disarray, and the Democrat Party just went crazy.
Yep, all true. By the way, I just have to say something. We're closing it up right now. If you take a look at the sartorial splendor of the tie, Jay is wearing one of the Rush ties, so it's all good. And a very, very interesting, fun show, and I'm glad we did it. We may do others in the future as well. And once again, I thank you for doing the homework and appearing on our get-together with our fan base out there. Thank you.
I wish we had that little monotone thing to end the show with.
No, we don't. But I think we're in good shape. I don't hear the music, but maybe that's a good thing. Maybe that's a good thing. So if this is still awake and alive, there you go. Thank you for watching. I'll tell you folks about it. This is the next show that we're going to be doing, by the way, which is where I'm wearing my little Patriot outfit. It's going to have to do with the NFL draft, which is coming up in 2 weeks. And I permit myself that little luxury once a year to do this. So, again, thank you for watching, and thank you for your support. And thank you to Jay for contributing as he always does. Good evening, folks.